Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Katherine Horton, and today is the 8th of March 2019. It's Friday night. Let me do my usual sound check. Hello and welcome. Okay, sounds like you guys can hear me. Okay, great. So I apologize for my looks. You can see me all mashed up. You can see me all the injuries on my face, but I decided to leave it like that because tonight it's about assaults and all the different types of assaults. And I can already tell you that I have just experienced, survived, or somehow circumvented the newest type of assault, driving, which is a real novelty for me, but I will get to that later. Also because over here it's a Friday night, it's 10:30 p.m. and I had an extremely hard week behind me, and I will have a very exciting week ahead of me. I actually thought I will celebrate. So I have a glass of red wine here, and I can tell you one of the really interesting and good things about Switzerland is that they have very good wine. They're very close to Italy and to France, and they have their own vineyards. And basically, if you're in Switzerland, you can walk at 10 p.m. into any petrol station and pick up the cheapest wine, and it will be just amazing. It will be just the most drinkable thing. So this is something I really enjoy about Switzerland, I have to say. I hate the Nazis, but there's lots of stuff I love about Switzerland. And so far, despite the Nazis, it's still my favorite country, believe it or not, despite the attacks. But one of the things I noticed, and this is how I'm going to tie in this inebriated show with something more serious, is I have bought this bottle here, okay? And I have to say this Primitivo brand is one I can definitely recommend. But if you look at the label, if you're an investigator, you should notice something straight off, and that is basically the logo of the Crown Corporation, right? So you've got this brand of wine and it has a prominent crown, and in fact, the crown is so important, it's up here again. Now, this is something I wanted to draw your attention to. Just go through in a supermarket and look at all the, typically it's luxury brands, but also here in Switzerland, it's also things like yogurt. Like I think the brand Emmi, E-M-M-I, has a crown on it. And in Switzerland, it doesn't really make any sense because it wasn't a monarchy ever. Why do you have crowns? And why do you have so many pubs called the Crown when you're in Switzerland? And it's because the crown is never referring to a monarchy. It's actually referring to the Crown Corporation. Okay, so this is the first insight off the bat. And for those people who are new to this entire show and are wondering what the hell the Crown Corporation is and why it's so incredibly important, I know you guys who have been following me for a long time, you're probably absolutely bored of hearing this, but I'm going to refer it to the new people who keep joining us. So let me share my screen and explain to you the importance of the Crown Corporation. I would like to take you to a site by Cornell University, and it's called archive.org. So it's archive with an X, arxiv.org. And if you type into the search network of global corporate control, you will end up with this paper here, which is, I personally think, one of the most important scientific papers of the 21st century. But more than that, actually, I really recommend archive.org. It was started by particle physicists, and the idea was that in particle physics, we are of the opinion that the research is already paid for by taxpayers' money. So we and I speak, I think, for the entire community here, because there were many discussions of this at DAISY and at CERN, and actually the overwhelming majority of us, I think all of us, think that because we are paid out of taxpayers' money, any scientific papers and any scientific results have to be 100% open to the public for free, because the research is already paid for. So I'm one of the researchers who has rallied in my time in academia against this dominance of these scientific journals, especially in the medical field. You know, I mean, in particle physics, that's what we try to do. We just set up a server somewhere. So Cornell had one, other universities had other servers, and we just put all the important papers up there for everybody to see for free. And this is how we worked. So we absolutely hated hitting a paywall. you know, and I never really saw, why do I have to pay a journal? I mean, it's a form of a cartel. If the journal hasn't done the research, hasn't actually received the taxpayer funds for the equipment, for the research, why are they creaming off the results of other researchers if they haven't done the work and they haven't actually received any taxpayer money? I mean, what is this about? And what it actually is about, it's the old bastion where research used to be a cartel. Okay, so it used to be a closed shop, and if you were a research institution, you had to pay these publishers a stupid amount of money. I mean, you cannot believe how much a subscription to Nature or any of these medical journals actually costs a university. It's one of the major expenses in a university, and it's stupid because it's all public funds, right? So the research has been paid out of public funds. The researchers' wages have been paid out of public funds. So why should a private corporation make money of publishing the output of publicly funded research? Okay, so this is the backstory, and I really strongly support this point. And I actually think moving forward, we have to dismantle the entire black research budgets and all the military research budgets. And I was really shocked when I discovered that, especially in medical physics, a lot of projects were very secretive. I don't think this is very conducive to good research. I think you get pockets of, you know, maybe Masonic or maybe just very, you know, bolshy and dominant researchers getting deals and grants and then pumping out their research, and you don't really get good peer review, right? Now, in contrast, particle physics, I mean, CERN has been demonized, but there's actually a lot of good things going for it, because within any CERN experiment, for example, ATLAS and CMS, the biggest experiments on the LHC, you have typically 2,000 physicists working on it, okay? So my DAISY experiments had about 300 physicists, so my papers were published alongside 300 authors. But on ATLAS, for example, the paper for the Higgs boson, I think has about 1,800 or something like that authors. Okay, now what that means is that you have basically the entire field of particle physics cross-checking your results, and you only get published if these 1,000 people agree with your results, with the way you did the analysis, and even with your spelling. I can't tell you how many meetings I sat through where people discussed if cross-section is hyphenated or not. I lost count. But it's that kind of stuff you have to deal with. But, you know, it has its downsides, but overall it leads to very good research because it's kind of 100% public to all the experts and everybody can comment. Now, this is the type of research environment I grew up in, okay? This is where I got my credentials. And I thought that this was normal. So when I changed from particle physics to medical physics, I suddenly entered a research field which is basically governed by little pockets, like hidden away in the jungle of research. And the biggest team is maybe 4 or 5 people, at most 10, you know? And the peer review you get as you're doing the research before publication would be at most 10 people, as opposed to 300 or 2,000. Right? Now, that leads to atrociously bad research, I can tell you that. And this is where I really, you know, hit a couple of really corners very badly in Oxford within medical physics when I came from a very transparent field that was actually, through its transparency, very high level. And then there was a step down to medical physics where I thought these people hadn't gone through this kind of you know, what's it called? You know, when you really refine a diamond, you know, you just knock off all the, you know, all the surfaces to just produce a perfect diamond. But it's a hard process. Now, medical physics, they are kind of mollycoddled and they are protected from this process that will lead to diamond quality research. Okay. So it was a complete disaster, and 2 of my projects were badly sabotaged. I had to just give them up and, you know, leave. And that's how I got to study complex human systems and the corruption. But basically the lesson I learned, and this is a lesson for life, is that when it's open to scrutiny from as many people as you can get, it leads to very high quality. When it's kept covert and classified, it leads to abysmal quality, okay? this is just a law of physics, as I found out. Okay, now in the world of commerce, there's an example of this, which is actually the companies that what's his name? Is it no? Sorry, I'm having like a total like brain fog. Is it Tim.com? Is it Tim, his first name? Anyway, the guy who changed his name to .com. Sorry, I've got a complete mental blockade, right? That guy, you can find him, right? So on Twitter. Now, he started several companies, and what he put in place was that these companies were open source, and the entire source code was open to scrutiny. So what that led to is that if there was a bug in the system, he would be notified by people, by programmers looking at the code, okay? Or maybe they ran into the program, looked at the code themselves, and then notified him, and they could, solve the problem very quickly. That led to a very resilient system. This was an open system. And then what happened is that he sold his companies, right? And then when he sold his companies, the next CEO took it closed, okay? So he stopped this, what's it called, this tradition of having the source code open. And suddenly, the quality of the company just nosedived. And the reason for that is that code these days is so complex that typically the amount of employees you have are not enough to debug all the higher order, bugs that you might have. So the more modules, the more moving parts you have to any engine, the more, problems can arise from these modules kind of like, crossing each other's path and getting in each other's way, okay? And then the mathematical number of combinations or permutations you can have goes up non-linearly. So eventually it leads to a stage where, you just cannot have the number of employees required to debug the code. Okay, this is the underlying process, and we had it in particle physics. People have it in computer science and so on. This is a known effect. Okay, now when you open your systems to scrutiny, what you're getting is free debugging services from programmers who just quickly do it on the side just because they are pissed off by a bug and just tell you the answer. Now, once you know the answer, you know how to fix it, and it's very, very quick. If you had to do this work yourself with your employees, you would never get around to doing that. So this is why in computer science, open source systems tend to be very resilient, because you have a much larger population debugging them than there are employees in a company, okay? And also you can tap into expertise. Now, what's so important for you guys to realize is that what I'm talking about is not just a fringe effect that applies to science or running software companies. It applies to every single human system, because what is a software bug in particle physics and computer science would be some other type of problem in other systems, okay? For example, in the intel agencies, it would be some fucking psychopath running a side business of human trafficking, for maybe a foreign power, a foreign corporation. Now that needs to be debugged eventually, okay? But to be able to debug it, you need the input and the force of the general population. A system cannot necessarily cure itself, okay? Now, where am I going with all of this? Okay, so this was a quick diversion into the advantages of particle physics and open source, software companies. But let's get back to the Crown Corporation. Okay, so I wanted to show you, for those people who are new and don't really know what the fuck the Crown Corporation is, I want to take you to this paper, and I ask you, because it's free, please download the PDF, okay? So you go to archive.org, type in Network of Global Corporate Control, you get to this page, which is the 2011 paper, and then you hit PDF here, okay? And then you download this thing. Now, the reason why this paper is so important is because it mapped 43,000 international companies. Okay, this is work done by the ETH Zurich, by a systems analysis, systems design faculty. Now, when they mapped 43,000 international companies, they discovered that there's actually a huge, big, fat cartel, and they mapped the precise structure of this cartel. And they mapped the super entity that is controlling this cartel, which is actually 40% of the companies, and I believe 60% of the revenue, if I remember correctly. Now, the point I want to make today is that the companies you see here and the companies that you see that these people managed to map are only the 43,000 biggest international companies. It doesn't really map national companies, and it doesn't map CIA front organizations or MI6 or other intel front organizations. And it doesn't map the fact that this is just a commercial cartel. And if you made a diagram like that with all the intel agencies of the world, you could actually prove that they are all one and the same corporation as well. Okay, so the big cartel that owns all these companies also owns all of Intel, and Intel in turn has front companies. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that whatever structure owns these big companies that control 60% of the revenue in the world of, world commerce, it's even worse because many companies are not counted, okay, in this. Now, if you want to get a shortcut, okay, so if you don't have the means of these systems analysis and you don't have access to the databases and you don't really know, how to go about getting a personal assessment for, what a big creature you're dealing with, one of the things that you can use is cartel signaling. Okay, and this is basically how that paper from 2011, which I find the most important paper in the 21st century, and this bottle of wine connect. Because this bottle of wine here, okay, apart from containing very good wine, also contains overt cartel signaling. The crown here and the crown there. And okay, sorry, this is actually a product of Italy. I got confused because the top was stamped with Switzerland, with CH, but doesn't matter. Okay, so this is an Italian company, but I can tell you that a lot of Swiss companies have the same Crown Corporation logo. Now, if you want to have an estimate of how much the Crown Corporation controls around you and how much of your money goes into the Crown Corporation, just go to a supermarket, go through the aisles and just count and look at how many logos have a crown in them. Okay, just look at it. And you can do this game if you're in the UK and you have a monarchy, or if you're in the Netherlands and you have a monarchy, but also if you are in France and you did away with the monarchy a long time ago, or in Switzerland where you never really had a monarchy because you were just owned by the Vatican, from day one. So this is very, very important, actually. And people think that these kind of labels are just, this is something that somebody just, drew up because it looks kind of regal and it looks very expensive. So you might be enticed to pay a bit more. And that's true. That's how it works. But also it has a function of being a recognition, a symbol. And also it has another function. If you are a member of the cartel, okay, and remember that members of the cartel, the Crown Corporation and of Intel, they too are under surveillance. They too get stalked by gang stalkers, okay? Now, when you are a member of this cartel, you are actually obliged to spend your money on Crown Corporation products, okay? Now, the reason why this rule came about is because if you do that, and you're a growing company and you bind your employees into spending their money on your own products, you're going to grow faster than your competitors. Okay? So this is why these products are labeled. And if you look at cartel signaling, you will see car brands. I mean, Alfa Romeo has both the, Knights Templar cross and the little snake with the, mocking tongue. So we can, let's look up Alfa Romeo because you will never believe this if you don't see the logo yourself. So Alfa Romeo, and yeah, here it is. Okay, so this is the logo. Let me share my screen. Now, the point about Alfa Romeo and this bottle of wine is that if you're a member of the cartel, especially of the Italian mafia, you are expected to buy one of these brands. Okay, now if you look at Alfa Romeo in a bit more detail, Okay, maybe let's take an older logo because that's easier to see. Okay, what you see here is the cross of the Knights Templar. You see the Vatican snake. You see the crown for the Crown Corporation, and you see the snake eat a human being. Right? Why the fuck does the snake eat a human being? And you can see it in all versions of the logo. Look, there's the snake eating the human being. There's the snake eating the human being, right? It's being devoured by the snake. Have a look at Alfa Romeo, right? Now, what this means is that this company, oh, here, look, oh, wow, I just found one that's even more overt, right? Here you've got a proper cobra, right? There you have it, eating the little human with the crown on top, right? I mean, look at all versions of this logo and you will see it, right? Now, the reason why it's so clearly labeled is because if you're a member of the cartel, you're expected to buy this car. And as the cartel was growing in size, people were expected, if they went shopping, to just, stick to these brands. So you bought the beer with the cartel signaling, the car with the cartel signaling, the bottle of wine with the cartel signaling. Although I have to say tonight, I bought this to be able to show you, right? So I didn't really buy it because I have to spend my money in the cartel. But if you do that, you have an internal, you basically have you're using the money as a community currency, right? And it stays in circulation and it's used to drive this corporation itself. That is very, very successful. And this is, for example, why local currencies are very good for the economy. Now, most people don't know that both Germany and Britain and Switzerland have local currencies. Okay, now I forgot what it's called in Switzerland. It has some, really catchy name, and it's used as a business currency between businesses. Okay, so this is how they're not stupid. I mean, they're fucking over everybody else around the world, but they're not going to fuck over themselves, right? So they have their business to business currency that they're using, and they're also using it to give each other loans, right? Very at advantageous rates. Now, in Germany, you have local currencies, and in Britain, you have, for example, the Bristol pound. I think it's called the Bristol pound. And there's, I think, the Bradford pound maybe as well. So there are two versions that are very, very widespread, okay? Now, as it turns out, the Karen Hudis, the general counsel for the World Bank, says that the plan of the World Bank, as we're shutting down this global crime cartel, is actually for people to have their local currencies. That is the plan of the World Bank. Okay, now the World Bank is currently splitting between members of the cartel, right? And the IMF, for example, as Christine Lagarde, apparently she's been sacked a long time ago, but she's still being floated and masqueraded, according to Karen Hudis, as, somebody, even though she's nobody, right? She's being floated up by the cartel. Very interesting stuff. Now, but Karen Hudis blew the whistle on the fact that the plan of the World Bank is to use the stolen gold from the Vatican crime cartel to print gold-based currencies with the gold already inside the note, so you can't be fucked over because you're holding the gold in your hand, but also that combined with local currencies. Okay, I actually think that is a very good plan. You have to think about the currency as kind of like a firewall. Okay, so if you have a local currency that you can only spend locally, well, that encourages, encourages you to support local businesses. And that kind of gives you also a buffer. So it also gives you a safety. If the entire national currency goes to shits, you can still, pay your local farmer and your plumber and your local doctor, and you can keep it stable. So I actually believe it's good to have a dual system whereby you have a local currency and the national currency or international currency. Okay. It kind of, it's about the firewalls you put into place. Now, when you have it completely free, I think in the United States, banks were at some point also issuing their local currencies. If it's too wild, wild west and everybody can print their own currency, what you end up with is a lot of currency implosions because of fraud. Okay, so because some people play around with your currency and, cheat you out of it. Now, you have to get the right balance between good supervision and good regulation and enough firewalls that you're resilient. Okay, now this is resilience against attacks. And what's very important to realize is that organized crime has already figured this out. And this is how they reached world domination, by having their own local currency and by branding them, right? I mean, as much as you have made in Germany and made in Italy, this is like made by the Crown Corporation, okay? That's how it works, right? So the people who are agents of the Crown Corporation will be buying that type of product. Okay, so that's very, very important. Now, the reason why I bang on about this, and I include it in the crime fighting workshop for, you know, when it's about assaults, it's because we are facing one of the biggest assaults on our international currency systems right now. Okay, now Russia, which is actually where the cartel, Russia and China, which is where the cartel has been migrating to, because they want to implode the US and Europe. Because of that, Russia and China have already been shifting everything onto a gold basis. And as I understand, intertrade is already settled based on gold. Gold in storage, okay? You need to have the gold to be able to deal. And I've heard, I think it was Jim Sinclair who was talking about the gold storage that you have in the Far East, where there's a warehouse. The gold stays there, but you have to have the ownership of the gold to be able to settle trade, right? And then you've got cow trading, you know, on the warehouse gold, and the warehouse gold changes ownership. But at any point in time, people can go in and actually check that the gold is there. This is how it works. Now, this is 100% gold backed, right? Now, as I understand, this is what the Far East is moving towards. And the reason why they move towards that is very stable. Because actually, gold, once a while ago, right, gold and silver, they were already one global currency. When you have the same currency across the globe, it is extremely stable because not one country can outprint the other. It's impossible to bullshit, right? Of course, you can fake gold coins and stuff like that and silver, but then again, silver is very heavy and it's physical. You can check it, right? You can test it. You can find out who you got it from. Whereas if you do this digitally and you've got, for example, high frequency trading, you can be fucked over at 2 gigahertz, right? At, you know, at 2 billion, you know, beats per second. And that's the difference, right? If you have gold and silver, it can't be printed. It's very slow and laborious to fake. It's very slow trade, and that makes it safe and resilient. When you have digital currencies and high frequency trading, you have volatility, and you can be fucked over at 2 gigahertz, right? 12 times 10 to the 9 times till Sunday, you know? So that's very, very bad. Now, what you need to know is that there are already plans by the World Bank to give you your gold and to give you your solid, stable, resilient currencies. And what Karen Hughes keeps saying is that the World Bank is waiting for the people to demand their gold, right? But for you to be able to demand it, you need to know about it. Okay, so for this reason, I ask you to make your way across to the YouTube channel of Karen Hughes. Take seriously what she says, because she is, I think, the US signatory for the Global Debt Facility. And the Global Debt Facility is the fancy name for the big storage, right? The ownership of the World Bank that it has now on the Vatican gold. Okay. Now, that ownership needs to be secured by the militaries of the world against the global crime cartel, and that's where the next battle line will be. But this battle can be won if every nation on the planet is aware that they are entitled to their cut of the gold loot of the biggest organized crime cartel on the planet, right? Do you want to steal from Aladdin, right? Do you want to steal from the thieves? Right, then please start demanding from the World Bank that your country be given the gold to print actually gold currency, right? And the idea is that these days with modern technology, you can have gold dust encased in plastic. In principle, as a physicist, I would assume that our ATMs could check the integrity of every node by just having a little spectroscopy machine, right? You can just put in your node, it can sample randomly and check, is there roughly as much gold in that thing as it says, you know, on the value, this can be done, right? So there's no reason why we can't have that. But for that to be able to be possible, every person around the planet needs to be aware that you, right, you are entitled to gold from the World Bank. You, right? Not your sister's dog minder's, you know, brother's son, but you, right? You have a right to demand that your fake fiat currency issued by the Crown Corporation be replaced by stable, resilient currencies based on gold and silver. Okay, but you need to be able to know that. Now, the reason why all this is part of the how to fight back against the newest type of assaults is because, as I tell you, the Vatican crime cartel is imploding. They still, because they're fucking psychopaths, they have this like feeling of invincibility in the face of, you know, massive, overwhelming evidence to the contrary, and they will keep going until they literally hit the brick wall so hard they pass out, right? So these fuckers will just keep going past the point where it makes sense to keep going, okay? Now, in that phase, they will try to crush and implode the economies, you know, like they did with Venezuela recently. This was completely artificial. The hyperinflation of Germany before the Second World War was also entirely artificial. Okay, it was brought about by printing the, what was it called, the Reichsmark, right? By just printing it to shits. Okay, now what you need to understand about currencies, I wish I could, maybe I've got 2 pens here. I don't have 2 pens. I've got a, you know, an IKEA clip and a pen, right? Now, what you need to understand about currencies and the value of currencies is that imagine that between these 2 points, you have a rubber band, okay? A rubber band put around this and put around that, okay? Now, the rubber band, if this was, just imagine it, right? If it were around here and I stretch the 2 apart, the rubber band would pull these together, okay? But if the rubber band goes slack, the 2 just go flop, okay? Now that is the economy. The tension in the rubber band is the amount of currency you have. You can loosen the rubber band, okay, by printing the currency, and you can tighten the rubber band and, you know, thereby drive up the value of the currency by basically absorbing currency. So the way that would be done is that, you know, the banks would just make money disappear. They would just shred the currency, you know, take it in and then shred it, or, you know, as you're repaying debt, for example. So there are ways to take money out of circulation. But what was done to the Reichsmark is that the Reichsbank, which was, I think, run by a Swiss at the time. Okay, I think I have to watch the documentary by Sean Ross again, but if I remember correctly, that was a Swiss weasel. And the reason why he was Swiss is because the entire fucking Second World War was coordinated from Switzerland, okay? So they had to cause desperation in the population so that everybody thought, oh, Hitler's our savior, okay? The way they did that is that, you know, the German economy had this Reichsmark as the rubber band, and they just printed the Reichsmark to shits, and the entire economy went flop, okay? Now, when I went to school, I was put through brainwash, and they told me, oh, hyperinflation hit, and to keep up with the hyperinflation, the Reichsmark had to be printed by the Reichsbank. That is bollocks, because hyperinflation doesn't exist independently from the currency, right? It is impossible. I mean, you can't, you know, imagine an economy with everybody, you know, at time zero, they're all sitting there with their money in their pocket, right, before the banks open, before they can spend the money. And suddenly, out of nowhere, with the wind, hyperinflation hits them in the face, and then all you know, hell breaks loose. This is not how it works, guys, okay? Hyperinflation is tied to the volume of the currency and nothing else. So what it means is that as soon as hyperinflation hit Germany, what happened is that the Reichsbank was actually imploding the German economy on purpose. It was high treason, right? The right answer would have been, instead of just going, oh, Mr. Hitler, you know, who was probably a child of Rothschild, Rothschild, instead of going, oh, thank you, Mr. Hitler, for building the Autobahn and, giving us work and the war machinery again. That's the wrong answer. The right answer would have been to march into the Reichsbank, grab the head of the Reichsbank, drag him out, put him through a military tribunal for high treason, execute the fucker, and put in a new chief of the Reichsbank. But the problem was that people didn't understand systems. They didn't understand the currency, right? And the educational level and access to information was much lower than today. And this is how it came about that, whatever he had a really stupid name, right? But the head of the Reichsbank, I forget his name. But what they did is they basically bullshitted the entire German economy and the entire German people, and they absolutely impoverished them by just running the printing presses. And if you go back and you look up the German hyperinflation, you can see images of children playing with blocks of notes, right? With 100 Reichsmark notes outside, because this money was worth nothing. It was worth less than Lego, Now that came about because so much of this money was printed. Now, the reason why I'm telling you is because that's exactly what has happened to the US dollar. So if you look at the real value of the US dollar, as calibrated on how much of the currency is around, I think the value of the US dollar is about 1/10 or 100th of what it says on the note. What that means for you is that if you have 100,000 in savings, which would be a lot for an American, by the way, but if you had $100,000 in the bank as savings, well, I've got news for you, because their real value is maybe just 10,000 or maybe as little as 1,000. Okay? So in other words, your life's worth of savings are not enough to even buy you a car. Okay, or you would have to go for a second-hand car. That's really crap. That's what it means. Okay, because you guys have been fucked over by the Crown Corporation that doesn't just own 40% of these companies and has 60% of the revenues and owns all these front organizations selling wine in Italy, but it also owns the Federal Reserve. And it also owns the CIA and actually the FBI and the NSA as well. Okay, now this massive entity has been fucking all of us over. It has fucked over the Germans big time, 2 times around, and is about to fuck them over a 3rd time. It has fucked over the Americans since, I think, 1871, if not before, if not since the 16th century. It fucked Vietnam, it fucked the Chinese, the Russians, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, South Africa, Rwanda. I can keep going. It fucked basically every country on the planet. And those that don't look very fucked right now, for example, Western Europe and the US, well, they are to be fucked right now, in the upcoming white genocide. Now, if you want to avoid the white genocide, you need to be aware that the white genocide is being funded by dodgy money that has just been taken black. Okay, if you don't want to be genocided, you need to shut down the dodgy fiat money run by the Federal Reserve, and you need to stomp on the head of the US Treasury and the head of whichever country you're in Treasury, right? And you need to say, enough of this fiat bullshit. This is a criminal fraud, right? This is fraudulent money. You are actually, you can be charged with high treason. You can be executed because you have subverted the country. We demand that we get the gold from the World Bank. We want the gold from the World Bank, right? And then we need to literally cycle the entire world economy back to sanity. Now, the reason why you need to do that, and do not be misguided by telling them, yeah, but if you have fiat currency, you can control and aid the economy and you can expand and blah, 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 because that's all fucking bollocks. Nobody understands the economy well enough to figure out what is in every person's best interest when your country consists of millions of people. The only thing we can agree on is the rule of law, right? That is the most efficient cycle in the system. Everything else is screwing people over, and one person loses, and typically the worst kind of people win, you know? So do not be fooled by the shit that will be put out, right? We have to stick to an honest currency that actually reflects true value and has to be, has to give you value. Okay, this is super, super important. So this is number one, and this is what I wanted to start the show with. I wanted you to be aware that we are in a situation where we are being governed by a massive global cartel whose existence is actually illegal and whose methods are even more illegal. Okay, it's a criminal gang. It's a crime cartel. It needs to be shut down. But as it's being shut down, we need to re-engineer finance. We need to re-engineer the economy away from, cartel companies and cartel ownership, right? These companies need to be reverted back into local ownership and maybe, local family or local cooperative ownership, but away from the big octopus, right? So financial systems, economies, companies, and then also we need to put the police, the intelligence agencies, and a bunch of other, government organizations back under public control. And that goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. When you have a closed system, right now the Federal Reserve is as opaque as it can get because it's a criminal organization. So that is the shittest system you can possibly have because you don't have the general public debugging that system. So I can tell you the Federal Reserve is operating in the shittest way possible right now. But the same is true of the police, and the same is most definitely true of Intel. Okay, so I don't give a shit what the former and current heads of MI5 and MI6 and the CIA claim. Systems analysis tells me that their companies are being run in the shittest way possible. And that is a law of physics and comes about from the fact that they are complex systems and they are opaque. So they don't have the general public debugging them. And if you want to find out what a buggy intel agency looks like, well, just look at my face, right? You can see the injuries where I am being gunned by a bunch of psychopathic super morons, and I'm being mutilated in the face. I think if you look carefully, you can see this brown patch here. That's nanotech damage. I'm not sure if you can see it under the slide, but there's this oval here where they literally burned my face as I was fleeing from Switzerland to Hungary. And this black patch came up there. Then you can see the black here as well across my nose. That's basically the same type of attack. This black here, they fried my skin. It's trying to hit my eyes and my forehead here. Basically it's like a round thing. As I was driving, I kept being hit from the car in front. Now, is that really an efficient thing to do for an intel agency? Just, mutilate a woman's face? Is that the best use of their time and, resources? No, it really isn't. So what that means is that Austrian, Swiss, and Hungarian, and American, and British, and German intel are run in the fucking shittest way imaginable, right? They are basically gibbering morons with a wanking addiction run by idiots, right? That's the end result. Now, if you want to get back to sanity, the way to cure the system is to break all of these systems up and do the thing in reverse of what happened to what's his name? It's not Tim.com. What's his name? Whatever, this guy.com. How the fuck could I forget? But anyway, so you have to do that in reverse. Instead of taking an open system, opaque and closed, you have to take a closed system to the open. Okay, now what that means is you need to have an open audit of the Federal Reserve, of the US government, of the German and the British and the Swiss government, but also of the intel agencies, the police and the military. And I tell you that for most of these organizations, the word audit doesn't feature in their vocabulary, right? I think every head of Intel would get his knickers in a serious twist if he had to, on Monday morning, face an audit, right? And that's because these people have been used to black slush funds, right, from the beginning. That's what they grew up with. They don't even know what it's like when you have to be accountable to the public. And it is through that they ended up focusing their efforts on human trafficking, on drug trafficking, working for organized crime, and targeted assassinations, and, you know, torturous murder and mutilation, right? Now, when you have to present a budget for child trafficking and kiddie fucking, it's kind of becomes really awkward and really hard with time, right? So having a public accounts is step number one. Now, step number two is for the public to be able to check the output of these intel agencies. Now, what British Intel does, for example, typically is that they say, oh, we have stopped 12 terrorist incidents, right? And they don't say which ones because, hey, that's classified, right? Well, I can tell you that when Andrew Parker says stuff like that, it's bollocks, right? Out of those 12 terrorist incidents they stopped in 2016, probably one of them was me going to the High Court and terrorizing MI5 with, you know, trying to sue them. I think that was one of their terrorist incidents that they successfully stopped, you know? So these guys are just making it up, whatever they want. They're just making it up as they go along. The truth is that what MI5 and all these intel agencies have been working on flat out is to brain chip all the children in the European and Western populations, and also in Africa and in Asia, right? So that's the truth. It's about brain chipping. It's about human trafficking. It's about sex trafficking. It's about denigrating and humiliating and scaring people and murdering them, right? But nobody ever gave their consent. And they are claiming to be government organizations. So if you want to fight back against the newest type of assaults, which I tell you will be financial, will be assaults of bioweapons, directed energy weapons from the intel agencies and the military, and all the sort of stuff, what you need to stomp your feet about, right, and demand is that you demand an audit, because these are government institutions. You demand also that they are run publicly and public-private partnerships are cut back, that private companies are regulated and they do not take over any policing or punishing services. So privately run prisons are no. Privately run intelligence agencies are total no, right? And privately run security companies and private detective companies are actually also really dangerous, because it implies that they are violating somebody else's privacy for money. And that someone, even if it's a spouse cheating on somebody, it is their fucking right to privacy, right? So this entire economy based on privacy violations and genocide needs to be shut the fuck down, right? And if you want to survive, you need to shut them down. So this is it. This is about how to fight back against the newest assaults. And as you can tell, the countermeasures are counterintuitive, okay? Most people, when they are hit by a hyperinflation, their first thought is not, okay, let's traipse up to the Federal Reserve and let's kick in the door. But that's exactly what you should do. If you did that, your hyperinflation would be gone by tomorrow, right? So you need to know where the levers are. And I tell you, anything to do with the currency is in the central banks and also big private banks. Because if I had to guess, I would say that even the derivative positions of Deutsche Bank could cause serious instabilities for an economy, for a national economy. Something tells me that that's the case. In fact, I think the derivatives are being used to pull off this entire cheat game, okay? So you need to know, if you are being attacked, how to fight back. And sometimes fighting back is literally going out through the back door, going around the building, coming in through the back door on their side and hitting them over the head with a newspaper from behind, right? But you need to know what steps lead all the way there and how you can do that. So you guys need to use the time now to learn about how currencies work, how economies work, how your Federal Reserve is meant to work but doesn't, and how exactly it doesn't work like that. You need to learn how tax havens work. And you also need to learn about, if you're in the US, I think it's called FASB something, right? This new financial stuff Catherine Austin Fitz keeps talking about, because that is it FASB 56 or something like that? So go to USA Watchdog and listen to Greg Hunter interview Catherine Austin Fitz. Listen to the last 2 interviews, and there you will hear about the secret bailout that is currently being pulled, right, in the US. It's a coup. It's a financial coup now being legalized. Okay, so let me show you. This is actually your way of fighting back. You need to first learn what is being done. So let's go to USA Watchdog. Let me show you the precise video I am referring to. Okay, so this is a very, very good YouTube channel, I have to say. I mean, Greg Hunter used to be in mainstream media, and then he left, and I'm so glad he just kicked mainstream media, because this guy became awesome just by his own, efforts of running these interviews. Now, this is, oops, sorry, I just clicked on something. So this is USA Watchdog, run by Greg Hunter, okay? And he is interviewing these high-profile people. Now, you should listen to all of these interviews. But if you're new to this channel, please start with the following. Go down here and, where's Catherine Austin Fitz? Did I just miss that? Hang on. It's not this one. So this is a good interview, but there's a new one. It's about the secret bailouts. Let me just find it here. Here. Okay, so it's this one is government. The government is taking massive amounts of money dark. Please also listen to William Black, Professor Bill Black, about Deutsche Bank being a crime cartel. And then, oh yes, here, this one, very important. Here, the federal government is running a secret open bailout. This is a super important interview where Catherine Austin Fitz will explain to you how exactly, sorry, this is adverts. Sorry, I need to skip this. Okay, so here, Catherine Austin Fitz explains to you how your government is now running a secret open bailout, but in actual fact, they are taking a lot of budgets and accounts dark. You will have no control, and nobody in government will have control about how the money is spent and how much is being spent. Now, from the fact that there are 250,000 views here already, right, you can tell how important this interview is. But I can also tell you that YouTube is typically tweaking the view numbers for important interviews by a factor of 10 to 100. So I think 2.4 or 2.5 million people saw this video here already, right? Maybe it's as much as, 25 million, but for sure 2.4 million people. And it tells you how important this is. This is a super, super important interview. And what you need to understand is that this is not just relevant for the United States. In a sense, the United States, it's just a sinkhole, okay? That is where the money is disappearing. But the money that is being taken black in the United States and is being and has been taken black in the European Union, which has been a super corrupt organization that actually hasn't published any accounts since the mid-1990s, okay? And their auditors refused to sign the accounts because big companies like KPMG, they don't want the liability for these fraudulent accounts. So they refuse to sign it, okay? So that shows you how big the stink is in the European Union. Now, the amount of money that has been disappearing in the European Union and in the US accounts, right, and has been disappearing, for example, from HUD and from many other, sinkholes, that is feeding the Crown Corporation. And the Crown Corporation is an extraterritorial global entity. It's a global crime cartel specializing in the 2 business plans of fucking and killing. So they do sex trafficking, drugs, and murder, wars, assassinations. That's their staple business. That's the staple mafia business, the family business it started out with. But this has now grown into something very, very big, right? Now they're doing these kind of family mafia businesses now on a global scale. And what it means is that this amount of money is now being used to totally destroy your communities. And they are destroying it with drugs. They are bringing in the drugs. So all your teenagers and all your children and even your spouse will be addicted to heroin and cocaine and whatever the fuck synthetic shit they produce, right? They will be addicted to porn, right? Your children will suddenly start being swamped with porn. Your husband will be swamped with porn. It will be absolutely everywhere. You as a woman will be made to feel like shit because you don't have udders the size of an industrial dairy cow, and you don't run around in skimpy hot pants, right? Now that's the Crown Corporation in action. Okay, and then also what you will notice is that your politicians, your whistleblowers will start being, mutilated, shot in the head and assassinated. Okay, now this is how you can tell that the Crown Corporation is operational in your area. Okay, you will suddenly have, stars doing the all-seeing eye, cover up half of their face sort of signaling. You'll have people show the hidden hand signaling. They will do the devil's horns and whatever the fuck, right? Now, if as soon as and also, by the way, another telltale sign is suddenly your police officers will be dumb as fuck and they will behave like criminals. That's also what the Crown Corporation does. It corrupts the police force. It promotes idiots and idiots with a criminal record and psychopaths. And yes, and your judges will be corrupt assholes as well, suddenly. As soon as you have these markers, which is dumb as fuck police officers behaving like thugs, corrupt judges who somehow can't, do justice to save their lives, you have porn addict husbands, drug addict children, and on the TV, you just have basically whores. Well, if you have these conditions satisfied, it means that the Crown Corporation has taken over your country. Okay. Now, if you want to see Crown Corporation produce in action, right? Where's this thing? Let me show you, right? I can show you literally how the Crown Corporation is taking over countries based on their produce. Okay. Now, okay, let me find you a music video that basically does it. Okay, shows it all, right? Now, the Crown Corporation has certain symbolism, right? The crown, their logo is one of them, the crown, right? But there's also other stuff. It's like the Masonic double pillars, the all-seeing eye, snakes, dragons, black and white tiling for the Masonic crime cartel, the sun as the, sun worship and the Jesuit logo, and blah, 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 right? So all of this stuff you will recognize. And also this obsession with magicians and witches and shit like that, okay? So that's the Crown Corporation for you. Now, if you really want to see what it looks like when a country is taken over, you can go to any music video. So let me share my screen, right? This is a music video I showed you before. So that in one of my videos, there's a detailed analysis, but this one shows it in detail. So there's one, for example, here called Witches. Okay, now this is a music video and I'll try to keep it totally silent, but it opens with the view of the all-seeing eye. Okay, so as soon as you see this is the all-seeing eye looking down. This is the Crown Corporation. Okay. Then you see the women in hot pants. Well, one actually has a birthmark in the shape of a cross, right? So the St. George's, the Knights Templar cross. How convenient. So there you go, Vatican link, but also military hot pants, right? So war and sex, killing, fucking and killing, right? So here you have the hot pants, right? And then the whole music starts, and I guess every guy on the planet understands what that's about, right? And then you have these kind of bouncy hoes, right? Now, great. So you just need to see that. And this basically will be your teenagers, right? That's it. Now here, I think this is what, South Korea or some Asian country, right? The Crown Corporation managed to take their women and turn them into whores. And then this entire music video is about that, but it has the key elements. So here, here you have a professional stripping. You've got these erect bottles, right? Very seductive, right? There she is, she's, placing her legs around it so that you get it. But that is basically the Crown Corporation in action, right? And it shows you the entire program. So these women are basically dancing here under the all-seeing eye for the Crown Corporation. But later on in the video, it switches to scenes that could be from a nightclub. So it's these teenagers stripping, right? Other teenagers standing around and watching. Now, what this is hooker training, right? So your teenagers and your girls are being put through hooker training, right? Now, when you look at this in more detail, here it is, you know, the drugs would be at these parties. So there she is, right? She's doing here with the devil's head, sticking out her tongue. That is the mocking tongue of the Crown Corporation, right? Now, as soon as you have this, you have it all, right? These kids completely hyped up on drugs, basically prostituting themselves, right? And later on, here you've got these magicians, right, mesmerizing them, right? These kids are there he is doing the horn sign, right? Here they are again. And then before you know it, they're a bunch of prostitutes, right? Militarized, weaponized cunts, right? I call them weaponized cunts. So anyway, now this is what you have, right? And later on, it just gets ever more pornographic, right? And this is basically what's going to happen to your country. But the point is that as soon as you see these signs, you need to know that, right here, right, the Crown Corporation is in operation, okay? Now, so, yeah, here we are. Here, look at this, by the way. This is now when it gets a bit more serious. If you look at the choreography of the Crown, here you've got fire, and now look at the hand movements of these women wearing red and white, the colors of Switzerland and, you know, the pharaonic colors of the Upper and Lower Nile. Look at this gesture. This is strangulation, okay? Now, by this point, and their boobs again, okay? So here you have the entire program of the Crown Corporation laid out, but you need to pick up on these signals, okay? Because you will see these signals in your country. I've seen it in Bulgaria. I've seen them in, yeah, sure as fuck in Romania, right? In Hungary and Germany and the US for sure, right? And in Britain, Switzerland, I think also. But what is happening is that they are kind of, well, they're kind of sexualizing your teenagers and sexualizing your culture. And the main point is actually to break up the family unit. And that's because as soon as you have this fast sex and whoring around, the Crown Corporation can get in there with their products. They have the whores, they have the drugs, they have the pornography. They can cater to your entire family, right? They've got the whores for daddy. They've got the drugs for the kiddies, right? They've got the porn outfits for your daughters, right? They've got the, I don't know what, highly paying, you know, middle-aged guys who are willing to be sugar daddies to your teenagers and pay for the platform when they go to university. They've got all the fucking products and they've got their margins down to a T, okay? But the most important thing is that they want to sell their wares, their high value wares, right? And they want to drive them in as a wedge to break up your family. Because the worst thing for them is a family unit where daddy doesn't give a shit about their whores, the kiddies don't buy their drugs, you know, the young boys couldn't give a shit about porn and are much rather, you know, preparing for university and doing sport, being healthy. And the women, well, they like, you know, their dresses, but they don't really want to prostitute themselves, right? That's the worst for the Crown Corporation because they can't sell you anything. Maybe they can't even sell you a fucking handbag, you know? That's deadly. So, you know, you need to recognize that by having a strong family unit and explaining to these kids that when they're going to these parties and doing like sticking out their tongues and showing their boobs, they are actually catering to the Crown Corporation, right? They are buying or selling themselves, right, on the cheap to the Crown Corporation. Because when these teenagers take off their tops, sure as hell, it will be recorded by a camera and be sold to some pervs somewhere who would be paying a subscription fee. Okay? That's how the system works. And this is how Intel, right, really snugly fits into the human trafficking and the crime cartel, right? Because you can sell any sort of fucking footage to anybody, basically, right? To a bunch of bored old guys, right? You can sell them anything. So, you know, you have to understand this. So if you want to protect yourself against these modern day assaults, you need to watch out. As soon as you see the hopping hose, you know, the Crown Corporation is in operation here. Watch out, right? Don't buy the alcohol. It might be spiked. Get the fuck out and just try to calm down and have healthy relationships, okay, and healthy communities. This is what you need to think, right? Now, of course, brothels, right? Yes, they have always existed. I don't want to, you know, turn everybody into a freaking monk and a nun, but you have to be aware, you know, I always say, keep the money local. Don't pay it to the fucking Jesuits in the Vatican and MI6, right? I mean, you know, make sure that the girls and guys you're with, right, are genuine, right? If you want to sleep around, okay, sleep around, but make sure it's not turning commercial without you realizing. Okay? Think. Okay? Think. And if anything, do whatever the hell you like, but never ever pay the Crown Corporation, right? Now, I paid the Crown Corporation today, but I got jolly good wine out of it. Okay, so for today, fine. And I got a good, jolly good lecture on the Crown Corporation out of it. But also be aware that by buying these products that are openly promoting satanic symbolism, like a snake eating a person, you're fucking paying serial killers, right? The car might be nice, but fucking hell, is it worth it? You know, so in a sense, what we as humanity need to do is we need to say no to the Crown Corporation. We need to question these companies that suddenly have, you know, you see a yogurt in Switzerland and it has a crown on it. What the fuck's the crown doing there? You need to look into the shareholders. You know, are there any private trusts involved or private dark money and tax havens, you know? Because as soon as you cannot see where the money is going, it will most likely go to these criminals. Okay, so you need to know that. Now, okay, so these are different ways of fighting back, questioning your brands, you know, banging your feet for a gold-backed stable currency, for an audit of your treasuries, for an audit of your central banks, for an audit of your intelligence agencies and your police and all this sort of stuff. You need to bang for open and transparent systems. And then when you're done with all that, sorry, let me just have a glass of water, just a second. Non-branded, this is Swiss tap water, which thankfully is still pretty good. Now, when you're done with all of that, right, you have to watch for another type of assault, which I was just put through today, right? So before I get onto that, let me just check the chat and let's make sure that people are still with me. Okay, you guys are still, are you guys still listening? Okay, so let's see. Yes, it sounds like you guys can still hear me. Okay, so now hold on to your hats and let me tell you about the newest type of assassination attempt that I just survived. Now, tomorrow, I can just announce that because actually maybe it's even better if I do. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a long car journey and I'm going to traverse several countries. So when I do that, should anything happen, I want you to know that it will be the fault of the head of intel in whoever's country this is happening. Okay, so I'm, you know, just watch out, right? If I don't report back alive and well, what you need to do is you need to grab the head of intel and in whoever district this happened, you need to hang his scrotum into a desk drawer and slam it shut until he tells you who the fuck harmed me, because he would know. Okay, so you know what to do. Now, what they did with me today, right? This is a novel one. Okay, this is a novel one. I'm not surprised because the journey I'm going to make tomorrow is going to be important. So I kind of expected something, right? So what they did today is actually a biowarfare attack in my car. Now, what happened over the last couple of weeks, I had basically a warning 2 times over, and on the 3rd time they struck. But what happened on the previous times is I would drive my car, maybe on a longer distance. I can't remember the previous times. It could be related to the heating. So it could be that I've just turned on the heating because it was very cold outside. And then whatever they did had to do with the heating, right? And this biowarfare agent actually being released through heating. I don't know. It could be just also maybe just a little pouch dispersing it, you know, by remote control. Who knows? No idea. But anyway, what happened is that on the previous occasion, suddenly I would be driving along and this pine scent was hitting me. And it was literally like as if some pine scenting thing was just opened, but I don't have a pine scenting thing in my car, right? So it seemed to also come from inside the car, because when you open the window, nothing from outside had the scent. So already on 2 previous occasions, I thought, oh, they just set something off inside here, right? So I had 2 times warning, and this pine scent I've noticed on 2 occasions before. Now today, as I was driving my car on the motorway, suddenly this pine scent hit me again ahead of time, right? Which was kind of like a warning. And then the next moment, what I felt is my lungs locking up. Okay, so you suddenly feel like kind of like a pain, like a dull ache. And the next thing you know, you can't breathe. Your breathing has been paralyzed. Now, if you ever notice something like that, please, the first thing you do before doing anything else, even slowing down, is you just, press the buttons and you open all the windows. And if you're traveling fast enough, that should hopefully suck out the air fast enough. Now that's what really saved me, because it was some sort of agent, I think, that was paralyzing the breathing. Okay, so they literally released this compound, and because it's a dispersive agent, it disperses. Hey, so when you open all the windows and you have this at fast speed, this sucking action, then this entire thing gets hopefully sucked out past you before you breathe it in. Okay, and the other thing that was lucky also is that the vents were not open facing me, but actually down facing my feet. So I think I might have had, a few seconds warning because of that. But yeah, fucking hell, out of all the things they do, this is now novel. But if you ever hit with this, I actually think the agent itself is odorless. I think this pine shit is something they did as a game, kind of giving you warning, Illuminati style, that they're about to do something, but the stuff is awful. And after that, now I'm kind of left with a dull ache in my lungs. So something is still not quite right, but at least I can breathe, hey? But very dangerous. And I think the idea is that you would just inhale this in large quantities. It would lock up your breathing. You would, I don't know, perhaps panic, be hit by another car, cause a car accident, or maybe pass out, right? And I'm not sure. I mean, just by the fact that my lungs are still kind of aching and the muscles don't feel right, it seems to be something that's like a chemical that actually, docks on and blocks nerves or whatever the hell how it works. No fucking clue. But I didn't notice anything else. I noticed a bit of feeling like woozy, woof, but very quickly, and then it passed. So please, if you're hit by anything, open all the windows immediately, okay, immediately, and just get as much air pulling through as you can, and actually keep driving is sometimes better, because then you have the air circulation is, it's much quicker. But fucking hell. So yeah, please watch for these biowarfare agents. And then another thing I want to mention is, this is something I know from friends and family and people I talk to, okay, and people who are consulting me. There seems to be some sort of biowarfare agent going around. I have now heard it from, I think it's Australia, United Kingdom, Germany, Canada, and the US. It's the Five Eyes, hey, and their colony. So the what seems to be going around is a type of flu, or type that feels like a cold, but the cold never breaks out, and it's dragging on for weeks on end, maybe even months. Now, with weeks, I mean 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks, stuff like that, So that, I think, is a biowarfare agent, and it seems to be released in the bigger cities. Okay. I am not sure if it gets any better if you go out into the countryside, but maybe still going somewhere away for a while, or just, going out during the day, or maybe on the weekends. Maybe that gives you some respite. I have no idea what this is, but I've now heard reports of this mysterious flu thing. And the symptoms are, you kind of feel like something is about to break out, but doesn't break out. So you just feel joint ache, extreme tiredness, you feel flat, you don't have energy, you maybe have a headache, or you feel kind of feverish without the fever ever really breaking out. Something very, very weird. And then some people report that they actually have kind of a cold type, symptoms. They are coughing, their nose might be running, but it's never properly breaking out. You just feel like really shit for a very long time, and it's draining your energy. And because this is, you know, I mean, of course, with the air traffic, it could be something, a new strain traveling. But given that there are genocide plans going on, to me, it looks like a biowarfare agent that's being distributed in the cities, you know. So, and I say that because even people who are not really close to airports and haven't traveled also report this sort of stuff. So, you know, I really think that it's being spread in the cities. It could be anywhere. It could be in the tap water. It could be, you know, dispersing if you're having a shower, you know, and water droplets. Or it could also be in air vents in the underground, you know, or being pumped into buses. I mean, fuck only knows. But it seems to be going around. So no idea what the cure is. Some people report that when they're using traditional herbs that are used for colds, what would happen is that with time, it actually breaks out. And then you go through a normal cold and then it's over. Your immune system suddenly deals with it. But it seems to require some herbal stuff. This is what I've heard, you know, no idea. But I can't tell you what. So maybe try some traditional remedies. No idea, but I'm very, very worried because these type of colds, there are a method, a way to wipe out the elderly, people who have weak immune systems for some reason, you know, maybe take medication or go through chemotherapy or have other reasons why the immune system is weakened. So that's really, really shit. Okay, so let's watch this. And because our health ministries, which should keep an eye on these things, have failed us totally because they seem to be working for the cartel, we kind of need to keep track ourselves. So keep a track of your communities, warn people of this, and ask people to keep an eye on this. And should there be any deaths, please record them. Anybody who dies, right, don't just think, oh yeah, so-and-so was really old, or he smoked, or he had cancer. No, let's just keep a track of where they lived, what street, were they whistleblowers, had there any sort of run-ins, was there anything strange in their past, you know, anything that might imply targeting. So please, let's start keeping, you know, track of how we're all doing. Okay, so this is what I wanted to tell you guys. I hope this helps. So to sum up, you know, watch for these weird colds, watch for any biowarfare agents trying to paralyze your breathing as you're driving your car. Watch out for any weird scent that is hitting you from the air vents in your car or when you're in a closed area, maybe in an office as well. It could be something really strange. Yes, and if anything hits you, just get the fuck out of there, get, you know, fresh air, and try not to panic, and keep a log of this, you know. I am fairly convinced that this was something that Intel did, because as soon as this episode was over, I noticed, first of all, that the cars were, so my gang stalkers, when they want to check up on me, I think they have indoor surveillance as well, you know, in my car. But they sometimes want more visuals, so they would kind of slow down and look at me through the side window, like, why is she not keeling over, right? So they did that quite a lot after this attack. So that's what showed me, okay, they, you know, they knew, they were expecting this. And then shortly after, I was, you know, passed by a police car in blue lights. So maybe it was even an ambulance, you know, I didn't check. Maybe it was even an ambulance. So an ambulance passed. And next time I pulled into a petrol station, there was a police presence. And the police car was just waiting and waiting and waiting, and the police officers were not getting out. And then when I, you know, tanked up my car, went into the shop and was about to pay, they just joined me behind me as I was paying. So they were very prominent, very odd timing. So this kind of shows me that, yes, good, goddamn, it's again the Swissies, right? Pulling off their show, the Swiss Knights Templar being at it again, you know, the Swiss Masonic networks. Now to them, I've got a final parting message, because I strongly believe that these Swissies still haven't, you know, they didn't get the memo somehow. Oh yes, sorry, I also have to, after that, I have to tell you another piece of news. But anyway, on to the Swissies. So let me share my screen and let me remind the Swissies that they, you know, really, please get the memo, right? Ask for the memo, read it. The Vatican is going down. So your employer is fucking bankrupt, okay? So what this entire thing is about, and what the chemtrailing above Switzerland is about, is that you too are in genocide plans, right? So they want, Switzerland has 8 million people, which makes them significantly smaller than Greater London, which I think has about 10 to 12 million people. So Switzerland is smaller than London, really. Now, with these 8 million Swissies, they want to murder 3 million over the next 6 years. Okay? So they want to take the Swiss down from 8 million to 5 million. That's almost halving them. So that kind of shows you that for a small country, that's going to be big deal. Okay. Now, if you don't believe me, let me just look up Deagle, Switzerland. Okay, so I have it here on the ready. And let me share my screen and show you, guys, that I'm just not making the shit up. So if you go to the website of the private intelligence agency called deagle.com. So sorry, I just already zoomed in. Okay, so it's deagle.com. Type in the search bar here, Switzerland, okay? And then when you do, I have to remind people, if you do this, the first thing you will see is we're sorry, no matches found, but note that this is for equipment. You will see matches under news, okay? Here, Rheinmetall, look at this. Rheinmetall completes new laser weapon technology tests. 28th of February 2019. I mean, fuck me. Guess what this is? This is me being shot in the fucking head in Switzerland. That's what this is. Anyway, orders, you can see how many weapons, you know, Switzerland has bought from around the world and sold to Brazil. But if you go to country and click on the country file, you can see here that Switzerland, 2017, Switzerland had 8.2 million people, but the forecast for 2025 is 5.3 million people. Yeah. Okay, so Switzerland is within the next 6 years going to be taken down from 8.2, by now it's something like 8.3 million to 5.3 million. So they're going to murder 3 million Swiss within 6 years. So they are going to murder 500,000 Swiss per year. And if you want to know how they're going to murder 500,000 Swiss, well, we just saw the news here, right? Oops, sorry. Here, the news. The news is that Rheinmetall, the German company, Deal and Rheinmetall, fused to create directed energy weapons. And it sounds like they just completed their new laser weapon technology test. And this is an item of news relevant to Switzerland. So if you had to guess how you're going to be killed, it's probably going to be by a Deal and Rheinmetall directed energy weapon laser system, which is most likely going to shoot you in the head like it's shooting me in the head. Okay. Now, dear Swissies, okay, if you really want that, right, if you think you're under the lucky 5 million, please continue doing what you're doing, right? Please continue allowing your police forces to just do the monkey and shoot me in the head and shoot me in the head on the motorway. But just be aware that the people who are shooting me in the head on the motorway are training to shoot you in the head. And typically, they're going to make much more money off you because you are much richer than I am. So your property is going to be worth much, much more. Okay? So please be aware that the people shooting me and the police making fun of me, well, these nutters are going to kill you. Okay? So effectively, almost every second Swiss is going to be murdered over the next 6 years. And guys, I'm not making this shit up. You can also look at, I think if you type a list of countries, there's one way, maybe it's under my bookmarks, but there's a way to list all the countries and actually check. Yeah, sorry, I can't actually get it here. So there's a way to, somehow I got through to the list of countries. And you can see what type of, weapon system this private intelligence agency is keeping track of. So airplanes, warships, absolutely everything, right? This is a serious, serious site here, okay? Now, if you think you're part of the lucky ones here in Switzerland and you're going to survive the upcoming genocide, well, good luck to you, okay? Well, if you really have your doubts, then please help me shut this the fuck down. And you can do this by contacting, I think, Philippe Rebord and Jean-Philippe Gaudin are the chiefs of the military and the head of the Nachrichtendienst des Bundes, so the head of Swiss Intel. Now, it is these two guys who are gunning me, right? And it's also the heads of the police in the individual cantons who are deeply involved with the chipping and are deeply involved with the terrorizing of the civilian population. They are involved in the genocide. Okay. Now, you Swiss have a very good chance of, actually getting these guys back under control because number one, you have ancient Knights Templar families that run this shit. So you need to go to your guild meetings and actually tell these people that they need to get these people under control, right? So it's going to be you Swissies, fighting this out among yourself, right? Who's going to die and who's going to live. But second of all, you have a direct democracy and you have parliamentary mechanisms to grab these guys by the administrative bollocks, right? And yank their balls, administratively speaking, until they are back in order. Now I'm counting on you Swissies to get this shit done quicker than any other country because you have the means to do that. Now I also know that the Swiss economy is very strongly based around the secret military bunkers and the shit that goes on in there, which includes human trafficking. But I'm telling you that investigators are on your heels, and unless you move away from the bioweapons to other shit, right, that is clean and above board, you will have all hell break loose. Okay? Now, in Switzerland, there was a film released called The Storm, and actually Der Sturm. And if you just look up Der Sturm, it's actually a metaphorical explanation or metaphorical arty-farty, little film, which is about the shitstorm you guys are going to be in when the entire world figures out what you guys have been doing. So the smart money is now migrating quickly out through the door, right, out of genocide economies, and is now working on the cleanup. So the smart money is now in healing, repairing, and tidying up, right? If you are still investing your money and your military bunkers in bioweapons research, you have no fucking clue what huge financial liabilities you guys are getting yourselves into. Okay, they're gonna be fucking huge. If anybody tests your military bunker and finds even traces of shrooms, right, they will probably rip you another one. So the reason why I say that specifically, and I'm mentioning fungi and I'm mentioning bioweapons, it's because actually when I went in on the 15th of March 2017 to the military HQ of Switzerland, and I handed in my file and I requested a cease and desist, right? The senior agent, I just call them fucking agents, they probably call themselves officers, the senior fucking agent from the NDB who I spoke to, because these guys always have to get their cock out and they always have to, give you a complimentary death threat, right? This guy actually showed his hand, right, in this death threat. So he did several things. Among others, he threatened my life, right? He said, oh, well, people who come and complain about directed energy weapons typically do that when it gets very foggy around here in the Bern Flachland, right? And I was like, foggy? Yeah, when it gets foggy and misty and people get very sad and very depressed, he said, looking at me. And it was a beautifully sunny day outside, right? And I came in there all happy and skippity-doo-dah. What did he mean? Well, he meant if I don't shut the fuck up, they're going to do me in. And it will look like I killed myself because I got fucking depressed, right? Well, the people who know me, right, and the way I look on my videos, I'm sorry, I'm not prone to fucking depression. I sometimes cry because it's very sad what I deal with, but I'm not really depressed. So that puts a stop to the suicide plans here, because I'm never going to commit suicide. No, before I kill myself, I'm going to kill you, administratively speaking. But anyway, the second threat, and that was, I think, inadvertently blurting it out. But these guys always have to fucking big themselves up, right? I mean, they always have to get their cock out, always, right? And that's how you get them. So what he also said is, I said, well, I'm also thinking about all the stuff that's going on in the military bunkers. And he said, oh, the military bunkers. These, I know exactly what's going on in the military bunkers. And it's not what you think. These days, they are just, how did he put it? They are just growing mushrooms these days. And he, because they always have to cartel signal, they always have to do this double speak, right? He wanted to make it sound like, oh, really, they are just growing truffles in the military bunkers. And I was like, well, unless you're trying to tell me that you are going to, you know, really tank or short the market in truffles right soon, and that's going to be the next Swiss scoop, that you're going to swamp the market in truffles, and before that you're going to fucking short the market before doing so, I don't think this is what you guys are planning, right? So what was this reference to mushrooms? Well, it's biowarfare fungi, okay? Biowarfare fungi. That's a pretty fucking big deal. All these fancy fungi. Now, he fucking showed his hand, right? Because this fucker had to blurt it out. Now, the reason why this is a super big deal, okay, is because there is a lot about the brain chipping and the how to, you know, kind of build alternative networks and synthetic networks under the skin, through tissue, inside the brain, has to do with modern synthetic fungi, okay? Because funguses have these long fibers, and that's what the entire deal is about, okay? So what this guy actually revealed is that a lot of this fucking bioweapons research is happening right now in these military bunkers in Switzerland, in these hidden labs. Big fucking deal. So should you ever find any fungi growing in the brains of your children and wiring them up and, you know, being coated by fancy nanotech, you know that you have to sue the Swiss government. And the beautiful thing is that, you know, the transcript of this recording is already with people I know. And should something happen to me, well, that transcript, right? And maybe there's further evidence that you know, conversation happened, who knows? That's going to be released, and that's going to be a big fucking huge liability for the Swiss government paying, you know, reparations that the victims and the harmed governments and harmed nations would be entitled to. And in my last interview with Kevin Annette, we just learned that we're all entitled to reparations. Well, you know, big fucking deal, because something tells me that this warfare mushrooms stuff is being spread around the world. Okay, and in that transcript is the evidence, and in my words is the testimony that this fucker from the Nachrichtendienst des Bundes revealed that these bioweapon shrooms, these bioweapon fungi, are being grown in the Swiss military labs in the bunkers. Big fucking deal. Okay, now, if you think, oh, but maybe it was just an off-the-cuff remark and it's just pure coincidence that these fungi feature in all this bioweapons research and all the mind control and the brain chipping and the, you know, body area networks and the synthetic fibers in the body, it's just pure coincidence. Well, I tell you that cartel signaling proves that it's not just pure coincidence. So let me produce some evidence. So sorry, I have to log into Netflix. I'm sorry, I'm not promoting the website. I'm just pointing this out because when I'm publishing my accounts, hopefully fairly soon, you will find that I'm using your donations to pay for Netflix subscription for work, okay? Now, before you get really pissed off about that, I want to explain to you that actually I am using that for very important reasons, and that's because the Netflix subscription, hang on, let me stop this. The Netflix subscription gives me access to studying cartel signaling, okay? That is very, very important. Now, let me find the precise episode I'm talking about. Okay, I think this is it. Okay, now, what is it about these shrooms? Now, as you know, for those people who are new, cartel signaling is the cartel signaling to their minions, their masons, their thugs, and their prostitutes what the business plans are. So in other words, the Crown Corporation needs to have, you know, the mission statement broadcast to all the criminals in the network. but they can hardly kind of send a memo, okay? So these memos are being sent through adverts, music videos, and Hollywood movies, okay? That's where the mission statement is being sent. And you kind of have to get into the head of thugs and prostitutes in a way that's easy to understand, okay? So they kind of put it in, and, you know, they will kind of mix it in with their symbols of the all-seeing eye to make it clear that it's coming from the cartel. And then there will be the film, and there will be a subtext, and the subtext is the mission statement, okay? Now, I already drew people's attention to this children's series, okay, called An Unfortunate Series of Events, right? Lemony Snicket's Series of Unfortunate Events, or something like that. Now, it's a kids series, okay? There's a movie and there's a series. Now, the movie has a completely different subtext from the series. And I think what happened is that the movie was put out, the parents would watch it with their kids, think it's a really cute and really nice movie that actually is against all this cartel stuff. And then when the series comes out, the kids are really excited and, oh, mommy, daddy, please get me the series, or please, I want to watch it on Netflix. They would start watching the series. The parents would be too busy to watch it with them throughout all these 3 seasons. They would just leave the kids, and that's when the programming happens. When the kids are not supervised, that's when the cartel gets in there, okay? Now, if you watch this series, I actually recommend you watch it on your own time without your kids, and you start thinking. I tell you, this kids series has the entire program of the fucking cartel, including the systematic abuse of the children. It also has laser weapons. It has all the cartel signaling. It has the all-seeing eye prolifically, but it also shows you how the cartel is programming your children. Okay, it is programming them to think that being a secret agent and being part of a secret society is really cool. It will also program them that the secret society with the one eye is a really cool, really good organization working to save the world. Nothing could be further from the truth. The secret society with the one eye is an organized crime cartel committing global genocide and brain chipping children. That's the truth, okay? But when you watch this kids series, the kids will be led to believe that this, oh God, the secret society, it's really good. Yes, it got taken over by bad guys, but actually it was at core really, really good. And the people who are there, who are still the old guard, they are the good ones. No, kids. The ones from the old guard are the ones who have been trafficking children. Okay. Now, please watch this because you will understand what I'm talking about much better. So let me take you to the Netflix series. Okay. So first of all, my donors, thank you for helping me to cover, you know, my Netflix subscription. But I tell you, this is what you get for your money, okay? By paying that, you help me understand how the cartel works, and now I can draw the connection between this kids series and the military bunkers in Switzerland. If you go to Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, season 3, please watch all the seasons because each of them will have new revelations. But the last one, season 3, at the very end, okay, it will have an episode called The Grim Grotto. Now, when they go to the Grim Grotto, this episode is about, I cannot show you because then my YouTube video will be taken down. But what I want to show you is, first of all, that this whole thing starts. Okay, it starts with this melody. Now, I can't play you very much, but in the intro, you will see these kids, but you know, you will see reference to wills, reference to stealing parents' money, but you will also see many, many symbols. Hang on, maybe I can go back. Okay, let me show you how this whole thing is. Maybe I can switch off the sound, not to trigger the algorithms, and just show you here. Did you see that? That was the all-seeing eye. This is the symbol of the secret organization with the all-seeing eye here, and then 666, right? And these 3 arms here, right? So you have these children, very young children as well, right? Different scenes from this event, okay? You've got some baddies, right? Lots of violence and so on. But overall, in this entire episode, right, you've got here the Swiss Cross, the Red Cross, children being abused, being scared, you know, lots of crime. But you also have the symbols of this crime cartel, the devil horns, very subtle, the will, you know, here, the brain, cranioectomy, right? Dissection of the brain, again, just one eye, right? Very important. Then secret underground maps, poison darts here. Oh, by the way, this, oops, let me go back. Let me go back and show you that was a directed energy weapon. Hang on, let me just try to stop it. Here, the secret labyrinths, underground systems, files, intel files, poison darts. There, hang on, can you see these plans? There's a sun and a telescope, and then the sun rays are focused and they are being used to set houses alight. Now that's what the directed energy weapons did in California. Okay, so you've got the directed energy weapons here, all this symbolism, okay, blah, blah, blah. But now what I want to skip to, I want to skip ahead. Sorry, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, right? But these kids end up on the secret island. Hang on, is it this episode? So they find this grim grotto, okay? And when they go to the grim grotto, okay, so there is actually a secret lab, okay? And this guy, who turns out to be a baddie, used to work at the secret island. And the secret island used to do weapons research, okay? Anthrax Island, anyone? Anthrax Island, do you remember when I talked about the secret underground bunkers and the global crime fighters, I mentioned Anthrax Island. So please go to that global crime fighters episode where I'm talking about the underground bunkers. But anyway, it might or might not be a reference to Anthrax Island. It seems very likely. But the point is that this used to be a secret lab. And the point is that in this episode, it turns out that in that secret lab, they developed a secret weapon that was so terrible that this researcher blew up the research lab because he said it is just too dangerous. Now, the point is when he blew up the secret lab, the mushroom actually was blown down into the grotto and started spreading. Okay? Now, in that secret grotto, okay, here you've got flames, okay, the crime cartel, blah, blah, blah. Now, in a later episode, that mushroom comes back, okay, and is actually taking over the toddler. And I think it's one of these last episodes somewhere. You know, at some point, I think it's this one, maybe. Maybe it's this one. So anyway, just watch it. No, it's not this one. Anyway, so please go through and watch the entire series. Okay. Oh, by the way, this is the film, and you can see it on the streaming channel. So this one here with the different actors is actually the film, and it has a completely different flavor. But what I'm referring to is not the feature film. I'm referring to the series. Okay, this one here with new actors. So please watch it, okay, and convince yourself and find the one episode where what happens is that there is this diving suit. It's infected with the fungus from the Grim Grotto, and the toddler's old-fashioned diving suit has this fungus inside, and it starts spreading. But it's also is inhaled chemtrails, anybody, right? It's inhaled, and then it starts killing the kid. Okay, and in the end there's a really traditional cure for this, right, which actually kills the fungus and they survive, right? So I leave it up to you to watch the episode what that might be. But the point is that the reference is made in this series that there's a type of very dangerous fungus that is so dangerous. It was developed on an island in a weapons research lab. It is so dangerous that the researchers actually aimed to eradicate it, it goes into your body through inhaling, and then it kills you very quickly. And it seems to also go into the bodies of toddlers, right? So that's where you have this crossover of the chipping of young children, right? Where this fungus might incorporate into the brain network, into the body tissue, and so on. And that's the crossover between this and dangerous bioweapons. So do you see where I'm heading? Basically, I have on the one hand a real life senior agent of the Swiss intelligence agency, which is just as far up the rectum of the Vatican as you can possibly get. And he is gloating about some mushrooms being grown in the military bunkers in Switzerland. And on the other hand, I have completely the opposite side, a kids series, which makes a pretty big deal out of mushrooms or fungi being inhaled and being deadly. Okay, then there are research papers referring to how you can use this funky fungus to map the brain of mice. Okay, and then completely other direction, you have the death of Gareth Williams, who seemed to have taken a transatlantic flight coming back from the US, where he was working for MI6, right, on exchange from GCHQ to MI6. Maybe he was working at NSA in the US or for the CIA, who knows. But he was flying back, it turns out, from the US. And then in London, he was staying in the safe house, right, of MI6, where he was, his death was odd. But he seems to have died from a fungus that gave him jaundice. And the evidence from that comes from CCTV cameras. He went to a pharmacy trying to get some, medication for whatever he was coming down with, but it was actually killing him very quickly. He was deeply yellow on the CCTV. People pointed out that looks like jaundice. It seems to be a fungus that attacked his liver and was acting very quickly. And on top of that, the assassins that MI6 or MI7 rather was advertising in the press, right, as having done the job in the end, the tidying up job, while the assassins put him in a sports bag. They put the body in a sports bag into the bathtub and filled the bathtub partially with water. What's the point of that? Do they want to make him drown? Perhaps. But the other point is also that if you put a body into maybe warm water, you accelerate the decomposition. And hopefully the water, the decomposition will then maybe wipe the forensic traces of this fungus. Who knows, right? Or maybe there was stuff diluted in the water that would neutralize or kill or cover up the traces of this fungus. Who knows? But there's something to do with a fungus that kills very quickly and gives you jaundice and attacks your liver from the Gareth Williams case. Okay, so all these things are pointing at fungi, all these things. Again, we have this NDB agent referring to fungi being grown in the weapons lab, going like, I'm so clever. I'm so clever with my double speak, talking to this little woman, not really realizing that this little woman is Dr. Katherine Horton, is gonna get your fucking ass one day. And then you have the other connection from this Netflix cartel signaling movie, where you have the all-seeing eye all the time. You have the death of Gareth Williams, and you have these research papers going on about the beautiful, wonderful, miraculous, properties of fungi growing networks that you can then coat with nanotechnology that you can use to map the brain of mice. And for mice, read lab rats, read people like me, read people like you, Now that's the connection between all. So the fungi are very, very hot topic. And they again seem to point right back at the Swiss military labs in the Swiss military bunkers, which is not too surprising because these are the Knights Templars, which are the mercenaries working for Vatican Intel, otherwise known as the murderous Jesuits. Okay? There we are. Now, if this guy didn't have this innate need to get his cock out, we would have never known. But thankfully, he did. Thankfully, I've got the transcript spread around the people I trusted, And thankfully, this can be now revealed. Should something happen to me, you can actually get the guy personally. He works in Bern, right? He commutes to work. He was just happened to be knocking around in an office being free and available, you know, on the 15th of March, 2017, right? So older guy, white hair, and he loves himself very, very much. So much, in fact, that he checked himself out in every reflecting surface. At first, I thought, oh, is it this Intel thing that they use every reflecting surface to get, you know, a good overview of what's behind them? Or, you know, and then I realized, no, he's actually just checking himself out all the time. Okay, fine. Yeah. So one of those pretty boys, you know. Yeah, I think he can be identified, he can be found, and he has all the knowledge of these weaponized fungi that the Swiss seem to be producing in the bunkers and be deploying around the world. Big deal, right? Now, one of the things I want to say to the Swiss is that if you guys continue with this weaponized fungus research, you just have the biggest fucking liability. The amount of reparations and damages you guys will have to pay anyway through the financial shenanigans that you did, as symbolized by the film The Storm, the shitstorm that's about to hit you all, well, you have no idea how big the damages will be, okay? And as we've just heard through the common law process, people can get your ass and get you for reparations even outside the corrupted, controlled courts. So I am telling you, Swissies, because I really love you. I mean, I have to be honest. If I had been talking to some fucking Nazi from the BND, right, and if he had given me that type of death threat, I would have just looked at him and said, yeah, you know, halt's Maul, Arschloch. But because he was Swiss, I just looked at him and I was like, it's kind of cute, you know. It's like the way they talk, it's just so cute. I just can't really be angry at him, you know. And this is how it is, you know. I love you, Swissies, despite the fact that you're a bunch of fucking Nazis. You know, I have kind of done the Knights Templar bonding thing at St. John's College, Oxford, you know, the loving cup. Hey, myself, you know, there's kind of like an emotional bond, although I'm not a Knights Templar. But I'm telling you, because of your direct democracy, just aside, you stand the best chance of cycling out of the Vatican crime cartel quicker than anybody else. Now, you are also closest to the Vatican crime cartel. And what this means is that your balls are closest to the cheese grater. Okay? You're the next step down. And as we know now, thanks to Karen Hudes, the Vatican crime cartel is bankrupt. The amount of, you know, interest payments it has to pay all the royal families and all the nations for the gold it held on loan is by now, with the interest on interest, bigger than whatever the world owes the Vatican crime cartel. So in other words, you guys are bankrupt, okay? Now the Swissies are now in this choice. They can go down with the Vatican crime cartel, or they can use their direct democracies to just pull the plane up and join the 21st century with the biggest wealth generation ever, as long as you join the smart money, get the fuck out of genocide and buy weaponized fucking fungi, and get on to the cleanup operation, okay? You guys need to, you know, get your economy very quickly on antidote, on healing, on cleanup, on cleaning up chemtrails. And you Swissies need to stop fucking chemtrailing yourselves. Because I'm telling you, that shit is going to make your kids brain chipped and very stupid. Because the Vatican crime cartel wants to turn your kids too into little thugs and little hopping hoes. Okay? And all the signs for that are here, because here in Switzerland, you have such a vibrant sex industry. You basically have, like, you know, the equivalent of McDonald's to go kind of pit stops for prostitutes in Zurich. Okay, might be a great business plan, might be like the pit stop car wash, you know, in Germany. great business plan. But I'm telling you that the sex industry in Switzerland is part of the Vatican crime cartel operation that's going to break up your family cohesion, because your wife is going to, you know, buy the surveillance equipment to find that out. She's going to spy on your car when you go into the sex workers pit stop, right? And your marriage will break up. Your wife's going to fucking asset strip you. You will be asset stripped by a Swiss lawyer, and you know how corrupt the Swiss, judiciaries are. Your kids will be taken and you will be fucked. Okay? And then eventually you'll realize that the fungi in the brains of your children has really coated the entire synapses with nanotech. They are completely controlled through their smartphone. They will not recognize you. They will think you were drunk, even though you never were. They will think you're an asshole, even though you never were, because their brain's going to be rewritten, okay? And next time you see your daughters, there will be little prostitutes actually servicing, the old guys pulling up with the Maseratis. And yeah, that's going to be the revolution. The snake eating its own tail, the logo of the Vatican. That's how it's going to play out here in Switzerland. Okay? And that's when the circle stops. That's when the fungi that were grown in your bioweapons research labs, that you guys have funded through the Swiss banks, investing in those research labs and actually building them and funding them and blah, blah, blah. And that's how the cycle is going to close very quickly. And those weaponized fungi are going to end up in your children. Okay? And I'm telling you, when I'm mapping the economy, these little snakes eating their tail are rotating much quicker these days than they used to. So in the olden days, it used to be maybe a century, maybe a millennium of the snake eating its own tail. An example of this is the snake is now eating Western Europe and the US. And before, it was Western Europe and the US eating Africa, eating Russia and Asia and so on. Now the snake's coming home. Okay, this is what the white genocide is about. The white genocide run by the Five Eyes Network is this asset stripping plan of the snake eating its own tail. But there are other snakes eating their own tail much faster, and these weaponized bio-warfare fungi are one of them. And you can see it from the chemtrailing here in Switzerland, So, to summarize, my dear Swissies, if you guys want to, and the same applies to any other nation, by the way, but the Swissies are particularly close to the Vatican, right? So dear Swissies, if you guys want to understand just how very fucked you are by the Vatican crime cartel, look at the best men in your military. The best men in your military are being sent, if they're Catholic, they're being sent to become Swiss guards. And what does the Vatican crime cartel do? They dress them up like clowns and they make them look like a bunch of poofters. Really? Do you have a bit more self-respect, dear Swiss? Dear Knights Templar, could you possibly cancel that 800 years old service contract and withdraw the Swiss guards from the Vatican crime cartel, which turns out to be a transnational criminal organization? You guys need to pull the fuck out of the Vatican. The smart money gets the fuck out of the Vatican because the Vatican is bankrupt. Okay? But before you guys start putting your money into the Crown Corporation, which are these banks, right? These big banks, I tell you that these big banks like Commerzbank, Deutsche Bank, Barclays, UBS, and all the others in the United States, they are going down with the Vatican crime cartel because they have been unmasked as well as a criminal cartel. Okay? So Deutsche Bank, for example, has already been named a criminal organization, and that's how the circle closes again, and we get back to Greg Hunter's YouTube channel, because Deutsche Bank has been unmasked as a criminal organization by the US regulator, Bill Black. Okay, sorry, this is adverts. It's going to skip here. In this YouTube video, you need to listen to Professor Bill Black saying Deutsche Bank crime weakens the global financial system. In this half-hour interview, he actually names Deutsche Bank as an organized crime outfit. What that means is that Deutsche Bank is liable for reparations going into the billions or trillions. Fuck knows. But it's going to be much bigger than what Deutsche Bank can cough up when the Vatican Crown Corporation will be wound down. Do you understand? So, dear Swissies, okay, you guys can keep busying yourself, trying to poison me, trying to paralyze my breathing as I drive my car, right? But at the end of the day, you fucking morons should actually thank me, you fucking idiots, because I'm just trying to save your own sorry little fucking Swiss asses. Okay? And that's because I actually kind of like your country and I find your accent really cute and I really love your direct democracy. So I'm telling you, Swissies, you guys need to shut the UBS the fuck down. UBS, it's holding apparently the uncut dollars. All right? The uncut dollars that were meant to save the US economy. The US might want them back. Right? Or maybe the US doesn't want them back, but it wants the Vatican money, the Vatican gold, right? In that case, you guys need to shut the Bank of International Settlements down because it is a transnational criminal organization. The BIS in Basel, really, it should be called the BS in Basel, okay? But the Swiss, I'm telling you guys, this is how you're going to get out of the Swiss genocide, right? Remember, De Gaulle says, you Swissies are to be cut down to almost half. And the reason why you should be cut down is because once the crime cartel has taken your weaponized fungi, it's going to take them out to the Himalayas, where the next Switzerland 2.0 is going to be, right? Nepal. This is why, for example, Nepal, this guy went nuts and killed his own family, right? Mind control. So that's how you can tell the Crown Corporation is now active in Nepal, right? It's another indicator, but this means that Switzerland is getting a bit too small. So the Swiss stuff, the mushrooms in the military bunkers are going to be taken out, most likely through the Gotthard tunnel, because now it can handle a lot of volume of shit, down to the coast, perhaps, you know, to a place like Venice, because, hey, that's where the Phoenicians went, right? Venice. And then from Venice, it's going to be put on ships, on mafia-owned ships, and it's going to be taken east, right? And you guys are then ready for plucking, right? Somebody asked me, why would anybody attack Switzerland? And the answer is very simple. Because there's so much shit to get here, guys. Because there's so much shit to get here, right? So you guys need to shut down the BIS. You need to rerun the gold referendum and have full gold backing. And if anybody can pull that off, it should be the Swiss, because all the fucking gold refineries worth mentioning are here in Switzerland, right? So all the gold refineries are here. You need to have a gold currency. You need to expand to more local currencies, and you are a country that knows how to do that, right? And most importantly, you need to cycle your economy the fuck out of genocide economics, right? You guys make your money right now with eugenics. No, the smart money is making money from the cleanup, from the healing, from getting people healthy, okay? It's getting, for example, the nanotech out of my fucking skin, the nanotech out of your children's brains. That's where the smart money lies. So every fucking day when I'm driving my car through Switzerland and the Swiss Masonic or Jesuit or Knights Templar network is shooting me in the head, and I have the Swiss ambulance and the Swiss police doing their little street theater, that's another day when I realize that you Swissies haven't understood. Okay, it's another day you lose. Okay, and losing literally means you guys are going to be standing there like a bunch of little boy clowns who have been fucked up the ass by the oldest, most geriatric group of kiddie fuckers. It's not sexy. It just fucking isn't. Imagine this well-trained, handsome, young man, instead of standing there with a clown outfit, imagine him in some self-respecting uniform, right? But instead, you guys send your best man, right, to be dressed up and be ridiculed like clowns by the Vatican pedophiles. That's just not cool, right? Seriously, if your ancestors, the Knight Templars, would see what the Vatican crime cartel has done to you now, I think they would just cut you in two with their swords, because you're an embarrassment, right? You're a fucking embarrassment. So anyway, this is what I wanted to say. These are methods how to fight back. We need to shut down the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements. We need to have honest currencies. We need to stop the fucking bioweaponized fungi. And I think Switzerland knows where they're being produced, how they're being deployed, and what the cure is. Okay? So all damages, please address them to Switzerland, to the Swiss government, and more importantly, to the Swiss military run by Philippe Rebaud. Okay? There we are. So these are the methods how to fight back. Now, that's all I wanted to say for today. Tomorrow, I'm going to embark on my journey. Wish me luck. Should I have bad luck, you know whose bollocks to squeeze, right? And I wish you a happy Friday afternoon, and thank you very much for listening, and bye for now.